In the last section, we configured a new copy of MongoDB and wired it up to our application. We can now walk through the entire front-end app and get a good idea of what the entire app in its entirety does for us right now. After we have a really good understanding of what it does, we're then going to start adding on our first advanced feature. So the first thing I want to do is use this UI right here to create a brand new blog post. Remember, that's pretty much what this application does. It creates blog posts and shows them to the user. Pretty straightforward. To create a new blog post, I'm going to click on the red button down here to the right-hand side. I then get prompted to add in a title for the blog and some amount of content for it as well. So I'm going to add in a blog title of my first blog. And then for content, just to get some like realistic content here, I'm going to copy some lorem ipsum text. There we go. So I'll click on next. I get asked to confirm the entries for my blog post, and then I'll click on the Save Blog button. That then redirects me back to my list of blogs, and I can see that blog appear on the screen. I can click on Read right here, and it will give me a detail about that particular blog. From here, I can either click the back button or click on simply My Blogs to go back to the list of blogs. So really, I can't say it enough, it's a pretty straightforward little app. Now the last thing I want to do is attempt to log out of the application. So at the top right hand of the screen, I'm going to click on the Log Out button, and that's pretty much it. That's all there is. So in total, there's a handful of routes that we need to be aware of that are running on the Express server right now. So these are the routes that I want you to be aware of. The Express server serves about 7 different routes in total. There's a section of routes that all handle authentication, and we saw those on this diagram over here just a second ago. So all these auth routes right here. And there's also a section of routes that handle working with blog posts as well. We've got a couple of routes right here, or at least the first one, that starts the OAuth flow to log in with Google. We've got another route to handle the callback for the OAuth flow, and we'll talk about that OAuth flow quite a bit later on in the course. We've got a route to log out, which we just used, and we've got a route to access the currently logged in user. For dealing with blog posts, we've got one route to get a blog with some specific ID. We've got one route to get a list of all the blogs that belong to the current user, and then one to actually create a new blog post as well. One thing I want you to be aware of is that there's no sharing of blog posts inside this application between different users. All the blog posts belong to one specific user. So if you create a post, it's only visible to that person, and it's not visible to anyone else in the app. Just so you know where this code is located for handling all those routes, I want to show you back inside of our code editor, the routes directory. So inside the routes folder, you'll find 2 files inside of here. One is called auth routes and one is called blog routes. So as you might imagine, blog routes handles the 3 routes that are dedicated to finding or working with individual blog posts. So we have one route handler to get a single blog, one route handler to get a list of all the blogs, and then one to create a new one as well. And if you want to, you can certainly feel free to go through the auth routes as well, but I think you get the idea of how this routing is set up. Okay, so I think that overall, we've now got a reasonable idea of what this application does. We haven't really looked at all the code that is running inside the project, but I think you've got the general gist. It's an Express application. It handles authentication and blog posts. There's a React app that is used for the front end, and that React app communicates with the Express server to eventually show some content on the screen. That's really all we need to know for right now. Let's continue in the next section, and we're going to start to talk about the first big feature that we're going to add into this app to really supercharge it. So I'll see you in just a second.